Cafeteria Canada organization. I get the pleasure to work with her, as well as the coordinator of Sustain Ontario's Animal Education Network. We have Chris Peters, teacher at St. Bonaventure's College. Petrina Daley, who's a co-organizer and parent of the parent-run school lunch at St. Catherine's Academy. And last but not least, Dr. Emily Doyle, postdoctoral fellow in the School of Science and Environment, the Grenfell campus of Memorial University, Newfoundland and Labrador. Very excited to hear from the panel, and I will pass it down the line to each of them to give us a brief introduction to who they are and the work that they do.
Thanks, Jessie. I wear a number of different hats. I really started 11 years ago in Sustain, Ontario, doing provincial network building, and then started working with Cafeteria Canada to support Ontario grants, the grantees, doing training and helping support them to implement their programs. Started working with the Coalition for Healthy School Food at the national level, and now support a lot of the work with Cafeteria Canada and the Coalition in a lot of meetings with Debbie and others, just to hear from the program, support the advocacy efforts, and I've also been a part of helping found and co-chair the Indigenous School Food Circle. And I really think of my role often as, what needs to be done? Okay, I will do this to support the movement and the network and just build up the different pieces that need to be done. So thanks. Great to be.
Hey, my name is Chris Peters. I'm a teacher at St. Bonaventure's College, which is a K-12 school, independent school here in St. John's. I teach junior high social studies, that's what I get paid to do. I also teach the nutrition class, and for the last 16 years I've been running the school garden program, which is expanded to include a school greenhouse, which we partnered with the Gathering Place, so it's on their campus. We also have a school beehive, which is also at the Gathering Place, which I'll talk about. And then I've been working with Fishing for Success, Kimberly Orn down the corner, taking kids out fishing, and then preparing fish.
Wonderful. I'm Petrina Daley. I'm a parent volunteer, not just by trade. This is a grassroots panel. I'm going to say I feel a little bit like a seed. I'm a little bit out of my element here. It's been a wonderful day, and I'm thrilled to have been invited to talk. So I saw a need for school lunch in my kids' K-12 rural school in St. Catherine's Academy in St. Mary's Bay, a school with 48 students. There had been a 5 or 6 year lapse in when they had a formal lunch program. So my friend and I committed last year to serving lunch once a week. And we served over 1,000 lunches last year. And we also partnered with a local takeout on the Salmon Lawn, Roxy's Diner, to serve lunch once a week as well. And the uptake there was about half as much as the uptake at school. That's me in a nutshell. There's not much of a lunch program now. My friend who was committed to volunteer with me, her life has gotten a lot busier. She's had twins, so I didn't have a committed person to help me this year. So we just we continue serving lunch really whenever we can, special occasions and such.
Hello, my name is Emily Doyle. I'm a postdoctoral fellow at Grenfell campus. I've been studying school food and also trying to be engaged with the school food system on a number of different levels. So I'm a parent. I try to advocate for school food, work with community groups. I've had the opportunity to be a substitute teacher in the school system, and I also worked for a short while as a school health promotion liaison consultant, and I have worked on a number of nonprofit boards connected with food in the province.
So our first question is if you can tell us about some of the exciting food projects you've been involved in or connected with, and specifically if there's any kind of elements or moments that stand out for you about some of those examples. So I'll start with you.
Thanks, Jessie. So I was invited onto this panel not because I'm working with a specific program, but just because kind of taking that bird's eye view, I get to see a lot of what's happening. And I'll just refer to a few programs, but touch on one more in depth that really inspired me, and it's from actually the program that Amberly was working with in southwestern Ontario. They have a lot of really interesting partnerships, and when I describe this and some of these examples, it's not to say everyone needs to follow the model, but just the creative ways that people can really look at this. So it's the VON runs the student nutrition program, and they also manage the Meals on Wheels program. And they worked with an organization called the Unemployed Help Center, which had a centralized kitchen, has a centralized kitchen as well as storage facilities. So they engaged a chef who mentored high school students who came from the local school, at-risk high school students who got co-op credits. The students worked under the chef. The chef provided recipes and supervision and mentored the students. The students' attendance rose. Many of them had got their diplomas, which they wouldn't have gotten otherwise, and they were validated and felt really engaged and excited about the program and proud of their work and passionate about school again. They prepared food for the student nutrition program as well as the Meals on Wheels program. Because of all the bulk purchasing that the Unemployed Help Center and the program was able to do by kind of leveraging the different programs and buying food for all of it, the food was stored in their facility, distribution was centralized, so they saved money on the bulk purchases, and they were able to tap into local systems as well and local producers. And so just the multitude of benefits really inspired me, and the ways the students were engaged. They had a chef to oversee, and I just want to throw that out there of, looking at the community assets that exist, and they're going to be different in every community, but I just wanted to share that example. One on the food literacy end that I always think is really exciting is Brown Public School, also in Ontario, in Toronto, so a very different climate in that, but they brought together milk crates, lined them with cloth, planted their school garden, and then over the summer, the students all brought them home to their families, watered them, harvested the food over the summer when it's a tricky time for usually school gardens to get maintenance when there's all this produce as well. Brought them back to the school in September, and then they had a big harvest festival at harvest time. And so it was just a really interesting way that you can have flexibility in that growing and go and surmount the challenges that often come with the growing season. Brent Mansfield in Vancouver, that some people have spoken to, he does food literacy education to support teachers' prep time. They hire a chef who works with, the season or the week to try to plan out, leftovers and how to make them into new program or new foods, engages the students, and really looks at like the food and the business side of things, cutting costs and making the best use of the food. The students are engaged in prepping food for each other. And then in Haida Gwaii, they have a local food to schools committee, and they really engage their community, they engage their students, they harvest off the land, they have knowledge keepers, and it's just looking at those community assets and community building. They've invested in infrastructure and talk often about deer dryers and canning equipment and getting the infrastructure that they need to harvest, preserve, and just have students and community members, elders engaged in their system. And so just wanted to refer to some of those, and I'll touch on some of the themes that come in the next question. So, thank you.
So COVID really did a number. We had one of the first farm cafeteria salad bars in Newfoundland, Labrador at our school. Then COVID came along and it kind of threw a wrench in everything. And then we had this really interesting opportunity in terms of talking a lot about food literacy. It's come up, and a number of people have talked about it. And I touched base with Kimberly Warren, Fishing for Success out of Petty Harbor. And what they do is they bring students out on the ocean, take them to the fishing shoal. We've got lines in the water, they're fan lining for codfish, they're lining codfish up, and then we had a kid throwing up over the side, right? Holding that codfish up, like big thumbs up, big smile, and then he could all back to the side of the box. Just like really dynamic kind of experiences, and we've done that the last 3 years, and the kids, it's gotten to the point where it's like part of the school culture, right? Kids are doing nutrition because they know they're gonna go fishing, and they know they're gonna get to work with sharp knives, and they're gonna have like minimal observation, and like, things can go wrong. So like, there's a lot of excitement, and then I think I actually have a picture of that. So I don't know if that particular student's big smile came through, but like every kid has this like ginormous smile, pulling a fish up. And this is our nutrition class cooking on site, outside with caught fish, and then they had other students try it. So there are some restrictions around serving fish in the school, but the grade 10 students and the grade 11 students all had fish on site and they made it together. So it was a big success. And then one of the other things that came up during COVID was I had a student who was a keen beekeeper, and she kept saying, we should get bees. I'm like, no way, that sounds terrible. Anyway, she came up to me and she said, my dad's going to give you our spare beehive. We're gonna split the hive. I'm like, okay, I'll ask, knowing full well everyone's going to say no. There's no way. And instead, whether it was COVID or everyone was like, let's get kids outside, whatever it was, everyone said yes, right? And then I had to learn how to become a beekeeper. But if you can see like the pictures here, like it's amazing, the apprehension about kids getting stung and all those like safety concerns aside, like the smiles on kids' faces, the absolute calm that comes over them when they're surrounded by these insects. I don't have pictures of this, but when they've got their hands in honey and the honeycomb and they're eating the whole thing, like those are just kind of phenomenal experiences from a teaching perspective, and just being around kids, like that's really joyful moment as a teacher. So those are the things that have stuck with me the last few years.
Really good reminder, I think, to always ask the question, because you never know what the answer might be.
So, as for me, all I learned to do was a Google form to take an order for school lunch. I didn't learn anything about beehives, so that's amazing. So for the fall of 2022, we served 300 meals, and then 2023 we did once a week hot lunch, like I said, partnering with Roxy's Diner for another lunch once a week. And we served over 1,000 lunches in our little school, like 48 children. Like I said, this year we've really cut back because it's been only me. Like in these small rural towns, you have the same people who are involved in everything. Like I'm a counselor, I'm at the school when I can be. I'm lucky enough that I've been just able to work casual, so I've had the time to give. But a lot of other people are juggling careers and families, etc. So only me, I'm just doing lunch when I can at the moment. But we literally started like collecting nickels and dimes in Ziploc bags, guys, in the office with a paper form, and we surveyed the kids on what they'd like to eat for lunch. And like you said about the smiles on the children's faces, the camaraderie and the excitement of them having lunch once a week was amazing. You're like, oh, they can smell the food going through the school, never happened before, they were so excited. But one thing that's been interesting that I've been involved with this year that sort of filled in the gap from the once weekly lunch last year was a grant that a high school student, completely student-led, was called Chefs in Training. I don't know if anybody's heard of it before, but it's through the Public Health Agency of Canada, and it's a school health grant for youth. So far in our school, we've had about 20 sessions of cooking and, of course, eating. So there's a couple little pictures there of some of the students that I work with. We did healthy versus celebratory desserts one day. So we made smoothies, and then we elevated how healthy they could be by getting them to try greens. So some of the students have never opened a pack of spinach. They never knew what an avocado was. And then we made it even more healthy, and it became a big competition. Who could drink the healthiest smoothie? We added flax seeds and we added chia seeds. And they didn't know, but this was bird seed. But they all ended up drinking their green smoothie that was still just as tasty as just their banana and strawberry. It was amazing. There's one more, I think, actually. Yeah, just a couple of pictures of some examples of how we brought in other community groups. You know, there's a lot of different communities, about 8 communities, I think, that take in our school in our district. So the town council of one of the towns gave us money and came in and sponsored a meal. And some examples of advocacy, we participated in the Going the Distance campaign with Brent Mansfield, and we got all of our students to write their letters to the Prime Minister. Oh my God, they were so precious. And one of the fundraising things that I did was Christmas pictures for food. So I set up this little Christmas thing. The kids could pay a donation, whatever they could give for school lunches, and we were able to offer a few free lunches for the rest of the year. It was cute. But I got to tell just one final story about the high school kids, and I know right off the hop when I started learning about school food, fired by the inequality that exists, that some schools are eating, some schools aren't. You know, the high school students, I felt like they were eliminated right off the hop because of the tax of K to 9. And I was like, what do you mean? That eliminates the rural K to 12. So now I understand that, you know, high school students in a K to 12 are going to be included. I feel like that language sort of needs to be fixed a little. So we pulled the high school students, they wanted to grill, they wanted to cook steaks. So there's an example of how the high school students are a different breed, aside from the K1 class and the 2 class. So I said, okay. So I contacted Haircut Farms, and you're talking about using examples of what you have available in your area. So I got 18 strip loin steaks with a pamphlet that says here. There's nothing smaller than cooking. It was amazing. So the smiles on their faces when they know that it's lunch day versus the smiles on their faces when they were in the kitchen with me, amazing. Like, the boys took the steaks. I said, no, you don't really need gloves. I wanted to teach them how it was okay to handle their own food, that they're going to cook for themselves. Because the teachers are frightened to death. Excuse me, people. Like, the teachers are handling their meat. I'm like, no, guys, just everybody wash your hands. So the boys took the steaks, seasoned the steaks. We had another team that cooked a cast iron skillet cornbread. Another team that worked on a salad, made a homemade dressing. My God, they couldn't believe it. It was an amazing project, the chefs in training. And I do agree that once you get them involved, like there was a kid, a high school kid, who had never cracked an egg. And all their high school kids who were frightened that they were going to do something wrong. I was like, no, put your dry ingredients in this bowl, put your wet ingredients in this bowl, stir it together. Like, it's just simple things that sometimes kids aren't learning at home that could be fostered at school as well.
That's amazing.
That's it, I'm gonna
I am challenged to follow such practical grassroots experience.
from a seed.
Yeah, as an academic, like that's my main reason for being here today, is having studied the school food system. And while I do have experience with, you know, some grassroots projects and learning from people like yourself, and pretty much most people in this room have helped to inform my understanding of what the school food system looks like in this province. And so when I do, you know, consider what I have to give this conversation to talk about grassroots school food kind of action in this province, I do think of, you know, when I think of a moment that stands out, it is now. Because, you know, in my PhD research, I really took a deep dive into what is school food in this province and went right back to the beginning, as far as I could go back. And what I see at the first is that schools and school food is built on some assumptions around food that basically has taken the value out of food. And I think this is the time that we are ready as a society to start to question that. And so that's what I'm going to say about that for now.
That's amazing. Thanks, Emily. And I know we have about 10 minutes left. There's 2 more questions that I would really love to get through, so I'm going to say let's do them a bit lightning round style. And Emily, I'm actually going to start with you on this one because I think that's a good segue in terms of what kind of support do you think is needed to make these projects even better and more successful?
So I will kind of reflect back on what I heard from you in the last panel And this is something that I have learned from what Farmington Cafeteria has facilitated in this province. Like when I think about, over the past 10 years, and Chris, you were started with the initial funding from Farmington Cafeteria into the province. And I think having that long-term flexibility, a vision, support has been very meaningful. And, I think going forward, it feels a bit of a pressure to, we know this is coming in September. We need to roll this out in September, but at the same time, you can very much hear in the conversations today that we need capacity building at a systems level. At the same time as we need to facilitate programs that are ready to go on the ground. But I'm not sure we have the capacity at that systems level. And I think that if we had the time to really build up that capacity, then we would be in a better place to say, now we're ready to roll out. Yeah.
Petrina.
Well, I wrote down 2 words for support: manpower and finances. Because, like I said, I've been blessed to be able to have the time to give freely. But a regular, standardized lunch program can't be sustained with only volunteers. I believe in volunteers. My goodness, and there's room for volunteers in every team. But for a regular, sustained program, I think that you need capacity, and you need money. And I think that they need to, when we roll out to every school, there's definitely going to need to be a connect between, the volunteers who are on the ground and consider what's already working. And I talked in a question for one panel this morning about realizing that the shift from lunch bags to healthy school meals will be a big pallet shift. And, there's going to be a challenge there. I know that parents, we create some of that, they're not going to eat that anyway, so they'll be put in their bag. But, there are challenges when it comes to moving from lunch bag snacks to a salad bar. Yeah. And I talked also to a couple of the dietitians, sorry, one last thing, about the how when I first studied the school food guidelines, I felt, oh my gosh, what do you mean we're not going to be able to have a hot dog day? Or what do you mean we're not going to be able to make a sandwich? What do you mean no pepperoni on pizza? I felt the impact of, that they were a little restricted, the guidelines. And I think that when we're rolling out to schools, especially that don't have any lunch program, that we may consider to be a little more relaxed or to start.
So I think all of the programs that we have run at our school, from the salad bar to getting out fishing to beekeeping, community partners are just crucial. It's nigh on impossible for any one teacher or school to there's no way I would have gone fishing on my own. I don't have any expertise. I wouldn't know where the fish are. I don't know. From New Brunswick, for crying out loud. So having Leo and Kimberly bring us out, made that experience wonderful. What I can do as a teacher is I can find the connections and put those pieces together. But I don't know anything about beekeeping, so we asked the Newfoundland Labrador Beekeepers Association, and they made time. They volunteered. They came in and talked to the kids. So we were learning just as much as the kids were learning. So, and then it's the same as we're thinking of how we get our salad bar back in. We need partners in order to make that happen. So at every stage, it's broadening our reach, just getting out of the silo of the school and seeing the wider community and making those connections.
Thanks. And I referred to a lot of the stories I shared, the ones that other panelists shared, but there's funding, but there's also what are the existing community assets. And there are just so many skills and so much knowledge in the community. But can we support chefs, knowledge keepers, others who have that food and food system knowledge to really support these programs? How do we look at centralized infrastructure and support? Emily spoke about can we buy trucks or use existing trucks that Ministry of Education or others have access to, or some of that food storage. Mapping and GIS mapping, Emily has spoken about that. with Ministry of Education around bus routes. Can we look at that for food transportation routes? How do we tap into students and their energy and enthusiasm and build up that food literacy, but also support food production? Good jobs with training has come up in these conversations a lot. How do we give folks, the support to think on their feet, work with their schools, and be creative to build up, programs that really work for their communities. And then, just thinking about other community kitchens, rec programs, senior centers, daycares, and other programs that work with food or have willing people who would like to do something with their time, or just things that can build into the programs and come together in a synergistic way.
Okay, like 20 seconds or less. Because I think this is important. So dreaming big, what would you like meal times to be like at every school in Newfoundland and Labrador? Closing thoughts. We'll run back down this way.
Thanks. For me, it's not just the meal time, it's the entire school food culture that I'd love to see shifted, where students are fully engaged, staff are engaged, what I've seen is that once you have food available, so many other layers can be built onto it, and so I really see that with these investments, that it will spark a lot.
Yeah, so I think we're one of 4 schools in a square kilometer. I think it would be great. There's 2 of our schools have farm cafeteria programs, like bringing ourselves together, operating as a hub or collaborating. I think there's opportunities there, so just expanding out those opportunities again, not just being stuck.
Well, I just think that ultimately, if we start, we got to start from the ground up. I know all the school food literacy will come and dream big. We all have our boat and we're all out fishing for the fish, and we have our beehives and we have our gardens. But right now, I just feel like we need some sort of standardized lunch programs in all schools, and we need to put an end to some of the inequality that exists. That some kids are getting beaten, some kids aren't. That's a start, I believe, certainly. But definitely agree that there's big connections to me to the land and learning opportunities for broken cooking, more than just a meal on the table for sure.
So in the past 6 months or so, I've been working a little bit into long-term care facilities, and seeing a lot of similarities between what is challenges that are faced by long-term care facilities in terms of quality of care, and challenges that are faced in schools in terms of, the stresses that are faced in trying to care again for people. And I think that we can use this chance to redesign school food to help inform in other aspects of society how we're not getting it right about how we are collaborating to support people. And so, in the future, I'd like to see, elders offering their knowledge and skills, and contributing their energy, having kids contributing their energy and learning from elders, and everyone taking part in taking care of the places that we live in. A lot of schools, I'm pretty sure, do not have access to good water. So this is the starting point.
Really important points. So thank you so much to our panel. Now it's time to open it up for the famous roaming mic. Who's going to be first? Any questions? Yeah, okay. Over here. Amazing panel again. I guess, you have our attention, and Food First is, of course, doing their recommendations to government. I just heard readiness. The money's announced. We said we're doing it in September, and we are. What does that mean? And I guess if you have any words of wisdom, we've heard some of them, what next? because this is May 30th. We're winding down over the next 4 weeks. Then there's summer, then there's September. And we want to do what's right for the children in Newfoundland Labrador, but we also want the government to get it right. And we say in our team, you want to get a chance to do it right the first time. So what do you think? Like, where do we go? And I guess, you know, to help Food First is they guide and give recommendations.
Yeah, go ahead.
One thing that I talked with a few people about here today was that, you know, traditionally the rural school is less advantaged when it comes to an abundance of extracurricular, lack of school food program, etc. You know, coming from a school that has nothing, like, I don't know if we need to jump right in to 5 days a week. Like, the children in my kids' school, I say my school freely, you know, they were so excited for the one lunch day a week. And, you know, maybe a couple days a week if there's a challenge when it comes to implementing 5 days a week in every school right off the stop. Like, why can't we just consider a couple lunch days? And for example, there's another school in my area, 20 minutes down the road. So you talk about partnering and it being difficult to make a full-time position for someone for just 48 children. Well, share 2 days of lunch with 3 days of lunch in another school and rotate, you know. So I don't believe we have to go from nothing to full out 5 days a week. That was just one of the things that I wrote about a little while ago.
Did you want to add something?
Yeah, I would just say, to echo again what you were saying in the last panel, start small.
You gotta start.
Like, I think it's very important, and do multiple different testing. Like, we've talked about a lot of very cool things here. It would be very nice to just let them play out. If there's a community that's ready and has, you know, elements of best practices, be informed by the best practices, be informed by the coalition, be informed by Farm to Cafeteria Canada, and see what local communities can do, and let it play out slowly. Yeah.
I think, you know, if we're going to talk about sustainability in Newfoundland Labrador, we have to talk about the ocean. We have to talk about fish and like sea resources and how we integrate that into our food operations. Just a very quick story where the first time we took kids fishing out in Petty Harbor, my student was lifelong vegetarian, and she said, you know, like, maybe being more sustainable is eating fish that I caught than buying something at the grocery store. You know, and like, maybe we've all heard that story before, but for her, that was like a meaningful moment. So, I don't know, I think that has to be part of the conversation locally here as well.
Keep making this, creaky noise. But when I look at this conversation, I mean, it's already starting. That is what is really exciting. And when I think about all the conversations happening across Canada, this is one of the most collaborative, like the, you know, partners at the table, the ministries are at the table. There's collaboration happening and really engaging conversation, very advanced conversations about the challenges, the complexities, and all of that. So just a big kudos. I think you guys have a really good understanding of the pieces at play, and as you know, some panelists and others have said, the will and the capacity to make this work. I will also echo what everyone has said about start small. All the programs I referenced have been well into their work, but at the same time, you're not building from nothing. There are a lot of things that are already happening that can be built upon. But yeah, it might just be, you know, one or a few new partnerships this year, and then, you know, later on another piece, and then other things. But yeah, there's already so much to build on.
Any final questions? I think we've got.
Oh, it's just been an amazing day, and I do appreciate everything that's been shared. I certainly acknowledge the fact that Labrador was actually top of mind for a lot of people, and I really appreciate that. Because you know the conflicts that how complex our challenges are. So, yeah, I want to thank food personnel for all the work that they have done. I just want to mention something about. And I really appreciate all of you, but I just got to ask Chris, I think you're having a teacher you know, being in a classroom and working with students and really getting what we're trying to do makes things so much easier. Because when you got the teachers involved, you got students involved, then the parents are obviously involved. And so then it makes it so much easier. And we are, you know, as Indigenous people, of course, we want to have traditional roots. And we want to make sure. So we're helping you too, as educators, to learn where our food is coming from, understand that it's all around us. And we've always known how to feed ourselves. So we need to relearn some of these things. But do it in a classroom setting, I think it's just an amazing opportunity. And I really hope we carry on what we've been talking about here today. It's not just a nutrition for, you know, food to feed us, but it's so much more that it can be. And I really like the conversation and what we're talking about. I think we're all on the same page on that. So let's make this happen. So the question is this conversation being talked about more on the teacher's level? And I did ask Webb, actually, was there anyone here from the education side? And then to see you on the panel is just wonderful. But is it being talked about in, I know you have a lot on your plates, but is this one of the conversations?
Is this like a teacher level conversation about more? I think it depends on the teacher. And there are lots of teachers doing this kind of work and they're very interested in it. So it's certainly happening, but it's dependent on the teacher and school being supportive of that particular teacher.
Yeah, I know two things that are very important for NL schools is socio-emotional learning and deep learning, and these very much connect with these conversations. So whether teachers are making those connections at all times, I don't know, but I think that there's definitely room to grow to have those conversations.
And time is up. I'll maybe just say that with that, yeah, I want to acknowledge because it is asking a lot of teachers, and there are some phenomenal teacher champions. Like this work would not be happening, and the examples we have would not be in place if it weren't for folks like Chris that have been leading this across the country. And but with that comes burnout, so we do need to make sure that there's adequate supports there. And so some of the work that we're doing right now is to figure out how we can actually support more teachers to get on board and know where to start and support their colleagues so that it's not just all on these individuals that are championing it on the side of their desks.